Ujai, and welcome to the Gate of Gates podcast. This is episode 2. We're coming to you live from Fort Lee, New Jersey. Last week was our first episode, and we're so excited to get back up with you guys today. And we're lucky enough to be joined by, first and foremost, my name is Tutipsa Mahekwa Namir. I'm a initiate from the New Jersey Temple, the Dogon Temple of New Jersey, and also the traditions back in Merita, Africa. And I'm here with my co-host.
My name is Kajiz Reeman Kebtah, and I'm, as you said, a member of the Dogon Temples, an initiate here in New Jersey, and I'm a member of the second generation of the New Jersey Temple.
My name is Medikata Kebtah. I am his generational sister and a part of the New Jersey Temple as well, coming from the second generation.
So we have a special episode for you guys today. And before we even hop into the special episode, I just want to give you guys a word from our sponsors. Give me a second to pull it up. Just 1 second. From SAS. So, SAS Hot Sauce began in 2007 when a small group of students traveling in West Africa were trying to think of ways to support charitable projects. One of the students traveling happened to be an artisanal hot sauce chef. And right there, SAS Hot Sauce was born. Since then, SAS Hot Sauce has prided itself on making exceptional artisan hot sauces with high-quality ingredients to support good causes. We continue to do this with the best and tastiest offerings of sauce flavors to date, with a focus on supporting displaced families in the Fada and Gurma region of Burkina Faso with the revenue from our sales. SAS Hot Sauce is available. You can check out the website. It will be in one of the links as one of our sponsors, and you can check it out. And please, do not hesitate to support it. They support a lot of good causes and a lot of good projects in terms of, like you said, like it was said, in terms of supporting displaced families due to terrorism and proxy wars and Western influence of trying to act like they're not involved, but they're actually really involved in terms of trying to get natural resources from
Involved or started
areas.
it.
What'd you say?
Involved or started it.
Yeah, they started it. I was trying to be nice, but okay.
The sauce is delicious. You guys
The sauce
really
is.
try it.
It
It's
is.
good.
It is. So, welcome to the Gate of Gates podcast. So, this episode 2, and episode 1, we were lucky enough to have a guest in the building. We were lucky enough to have Eric Armstrong in the building with us. And if you haven't had an opportunity to check out episode 1, please go back and listen to it. It's on all platforms. It's on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, a bunch of other, wherever you can imagine it's there, and you can check it out. And today we're going to be talking about something that we know is a very sensitive topic, but like the Gate of Gates says, right? We are not afraid to shy away from topics or taboos or things that people are afraid to talk about. So we really wanted to talk about something that really seems to have a hold of the zeitgeist right now and seems to really be something that is becoming very, very sensitive for a lot of people. And it doesn't only involve the group of people we're talking about. It involves really a human concern. And there was a lot of, what's the word I'm looking for? There was a lot of concern as to how we were going to approach this and how we were going to do this, because a lot of people were concerned on, maybe hitting the wrong buttons or alienating people. And yet we knew that because it is a sensitive topic, that we need to touch on it and we need to talk about it. And so today our topic on the podcast, we're going to be talking about transgender people. Now, already, I can feel your blood boiling. And yet, we're still going to talk because we need to be able to have conversations as people. Because there's a lot of things that we can find ourselves, you know, allowing the powers that be to build up as barriers, and then we therefore define ourselves as. So we have to be able to meet each other wherever we find each other and have conversations in order to make sure that we're not losing sight of our humanity and what it means to be human and how to connect with one another. And I'm noticing that there seems to be it's kind of like when you try and talk about like Jewish people, and then you just automatically get like
Canceled.
labeled, like, yeah, you get canceled and you get automatically labeled like an anti-Semite. And then it's like, so like, how do you hold, like, so you're telling me like, I can't even tell my Jewish friend, like he needs to go like take shower. And then they're going to tell me like I'm an anti-Semite.
Are you saying
like
Jewish
that?
people don't take showers?
That's not what I'm saying. But like, you know, you
That's
see
what they
how
would
quickly,
say.
you see how quickly they'd be like, are you an anti-Semite?
Right.
Like, do you think Jewish people stink? It's like, no, I didn't say that. And yet that's how sensitive, you know, we find ourselves dealing with these, you know, hot button topics, right? So we really wanted to dive into this topic, and we really wanted to talk about it in a way where we're bringing some nuance, in a way in which, you know, we're really touching on, you know, where something like that could be coming from, and, you know, where someone that's identifying or thinking that they're that, or is saying that they're that, or is that, whatever, and doing it in a way in which we can really, you know, talk and come to a common ground without, you know, getting boycotted like Dave Chappelle.
Yeah.
Like, who else got boycotted in terms of
Andrew Tate.
but he got. I don't know if he got.
Another
Yeah.
story.
No, shout out to Andrew Tate.
Oh my
He's not another story. Shout out to Andrew Tate. Because
no.
Andrew Tate is holding it down. So, but it's nothing to do with transgenders, right? The transgender topic. So,
Oh, Matt Welsh.
Matt Walsh.
Matt Welsh,
Yes, yeah. Matt Walsh. If you haven't had the opportunity to check out Matt Walsh's contributions to the conversation, Matt Walsh, he has a documentary called What is a Woman?
Oh.
And this is the perfect segue, right? Because it allows me to touch on there's an argument out there about the transgender position, and the transgender position that talks about this concept of two spirits, right?
Okay.
And how there is I already feel him. He's like, I'm ready. Like, he was like, And this concept of two spirits, and how the Indigenous really champion this aspect of two spirits, right? And then Matt Walsh, shout out to Matt Walsh again. He goes to the Maasai. I believe it's the Maasai, right?
Yeah.
It's
In
the
Kenya,
Maasai.
yeah.
In Kenya. He goes to see the Maasai, which is an indigenous tribe in Medita, in Africa. And he asks them, like, okay, if there's a man and he thinks he's a woman, what would you say about that? And then they're kind of confused.
Right, like, what do you mean?
And they're like, what do you mean? Like, yeah, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And they're asking the elders, and the elders are like, no, that person would be considered sick or confused.
Right.
Now, the argument is that there is this concept of two spirits. There's this concept of two spirits, that you can be a man and have the spirit, a feminine spirit and a male spirit, or a masculine spirit, right? And there can be the manifestation of two spirits that appear to be from two separate sexes or two separate genders occupying the same body at the same time. And therefore, that is where this concept of transgender gender fluid in the indigenous spaces come from. And we're here to say BS, with all due respect, we're here to say BS because we know, like, and we're rocking with our Maasai brothers. Like, we're here, saying, like, yes, we're with you because it doesn't really fly. But it seems to be an argument that a lot of people are using in the West and justifying from a lot of different cultural regions, like the Amazon and different indigenous, communities and things like that.
But here's the funny thing with that. When you hear most of these arguments and you hear the people that are actually arguing this stuff, I don't ever see any indigenous brother and sister actually championing this thing. And the sad part about it is this movement really came as a cultural appropriation, so to speak, because it was really coming from like the Native American traditions here in North America. So there on the reservations, there is a separate, government, so to speak. So technically,
you're talking about the Native American reservations,
the Native American reservations. So technically, they don't have the same governmental structure as we do, but a lot of the times what happens on those reservations, they tend not to have the best living conditions because even though it's not the same governmental structure, we all know who really is controlling America and is controlling the land and things like that. So it's really a falsehood. And those people ended up adopting a lot of the ways of their colonizers. So what ended up happening is people who were of maybe like an outside perspective who end up being born on a reservation but kind of don't really know their ancestral culture because of a loss of knowledge of the values and principles, they started taking certain aspects of the Native American cultures and then appropriating it in a way that suits the modern, ways of doing things.
Or
They're justifying
the modern
it.
way of doing things.
So in a Native American perspective, where somebody with like two spirits is what they're really saying I've heard this from an actual Native American elder on 14th Street. What he was saying was,
are you sure he was a real?
Yeah, he was a real deal.
Union Square?
No, he was a real deal. He was a real deal. He was a real deal.
But we gotta press you because
I'm gonna tell you how let me tell you how he's the real deal, because he's the real deal because he told me that that's not true. Because he actually grew up still holding some of his traditions. And from their perspective, when they say somebody's like two-spirited, they don't literally mean somebody has like two genders. That doesn't make sense because the basis of life is male and female. That's how we all get to be born, right? What they're saying when somebody has two spirits is basically it's like someone who has the energy of what we can consider to be a masculine and feminine, but usually that's somebody who knows how to work with those energies and manipulate nature in a way. Now we're talking about a medicine man. We're talking about somebody who's more like a priest. We're talking about somebody who's more like
What's the word that people that have a more accessible point to what you just called
a shaman.
Shaman.
Right. Somebody who's like a shaman.
Yeah.
That's what it really means. It's not really, it wasn't tied to any sex or gender or anything like that. So that's them really taking that aspect of Native American culture and appropriating it and twisting the values and making it seem like something it's not.
So I gotta, for the people out there that don't have a context that you have, I'm going to have to push back, right? So like just for devil's advocate purposes. Now, what do you mean? What's the difference between sex and gender?
Well, you mean the physical act?
No, not the physical act.
Like male,
but you guys know what I'm
female.
saying, like male, female, like
And then
man, woman.
Yeah, male and female, and then I guess what you like to do with other people.
Yes.
Like I could be a woman, but I'm attracted to, women, or I could be a woman, but I feel like a man. There's so many different things.
I'm just laughing.
Are you saying sexual orientation and
the only reason why I'm laughing is because I'm remembering the Dave Chappelle bit where he talks about like it's like a Chinese man that says he feels like a black man, and then he walks up and he's like, I am Chinese and I feel like a black man.
Right.
And he's like, no, that doesn't work. It doesn't work like that. But
these days it would. It would
Well,
work.
I feel like a white man, so send me white man money because I feel like an Asian.
All the privilege.
Or yeah, like send me all of the white man checks. Send
Right.
me all of the Indian man and Indian Asian checks. Like send it to me. I feel like them. I identify as that.
Right.
So I mean, I just want to say this. I identify as a white lesbian billionaire, and
Okay,
I'm going to sue the U.S. government for not giving me my billions of dollars because it's owed to me, because that's what I feel like. It's my right. It's my privilege.
Okay, so let me ask you this, because I've looked into this, right? I've looked into this concept of like sex versus gender. And sex has to do with like the genitalia in which you're born with, right? Like the genitalia in which you use or you are born with at birth, right? And then depending upon the sex, which means that the genitalia in which that is present when you're born, you can then therefore be assigned a gender. Whereas that a gender becomes a
A
construct,
social construct.
a social construct of the Western mentality or the
Right.
Western society.
Here's-
That's what they say.
Here's
That's
a-
what
here's
the
thing.
argument is.
Here's the thing with that, right? Now we're talking about language, because that's basically what we're talking about. So my understanding of language is that language is what carries our understanding of the reality that is at hand, right? So if we're saying bomb
Keep going.
drop. So
Keep
if we're
going.
saying that your sex is the genitalia you're born with, and then your gender is based on that genitalia, right? That's what we're basically saying. So again, language is what brings the reality of your surroundings to you, right? So it's the way you understand the existence. Now, I don't agree with the idea that gender is a social construct, because if we're speaking a language and the language is supposed to be what is really allowing us to communicate the realities of nature, then that can't be a social construct because it doesn't come from human beings. And I think that's where we get this argument misconstrued, because people think we just sat here and made words up.
But
You
then
don't make things up. You put things together to kind of give an image
So
or an
then-
understanding to the reality.
So then let me ask you this, because we got to be fair, right? So then how can you consider English not to be a construct when it's a dialect that steals so many different aspects of its dialectal or dialect's foundation from different languages like Greek,
Right.
German, these other things. So then
French.
That's what I was gonna say too, because you're saying like you can't just make stuff up, but a lot of shit in English is like just made up.
It's true.
It's arbitrary.
It's
But
true.
here's the thing. I agree with everything you're saying. It's true. But English, if you look at it, really, that's the only language in where we're able to actually do that. Because we can't do
English,
that in
you
an
mean
in,
English,
yeah,
yeah.
in a traditional language. You can't do that.
How
You-
come?
I don't even think you could do that in Spanish,
How come?
because there wouldn't be a concept to convey something like opposite, like a transgender, because it doesn't make sense, again, because language is supposed to give a context to the reality. Now, the reason why I'm saying that, even with English, right, we all know what English is, at least we should. English is a construct in which it allows us to actually make things
at
up,
least we should.
right? That's the reality of
fired,
it.
yeah.
But
If you're listening to
At
us in
some
another
point-
language,
at
he's
some
not talking
point,
to you.
right, I'm not talking to you.
Yeah.
If you don't speak English, power to you. But at some point, right, we have to draw the line. Because even though English is just a conglomeration of all these different languages, and in truth, it can kind of like be that opening to make anything up, we have to still draw the line. We have to still understand that there's a reality to things. So we can't just now just start making things not make sense. Because we already don't really make sense, because we're not speaking a language that's actually involved in tune with nature.
Yeah,
right?
but what about my reality? My reality isn't the same as your reality. What,
Yeah,
what
exactly.
would you say to that?
There's
'Cause
your
how do you
reality,
define
there's
I-
my reality, and then there's the reality.
Hold on, but I identify as a white Indian man,
That's his reality.
and I would like you to send me those checks.
Immediately.
Yeah, immediately, exactly.
Power to you, but that's just not the reality. That's your reality. That's in your head. That's the way you feel about that is the way you feel about that.
But you
That
can't
shouldn't
prove
dictate
that.
how I feel
But
about
you
it.
can't prove that.
I can't prove that.
No, you can't prove that.
So prove to me that you're a white Indian man.
Indian.
Yeah. No, I'm not gonna prove it to you because I don't have to.
Because you can't prove that he's not.
Yeah, because you can't prove that I'm not.
So this is where the argument becomes very arbitrary, right?
Exactly.
And that's the thing. That's what I'm saying.
I feel like we have to be. We just gotta be. We have to be. We have to be fair.
Yeah.
We have to be fair because we have to. We have to take things into consideration that, we're not, our position or our perspective is not the only perspective in the position on it, right? So let me ask you this. How do you feel that, let's get back to nature, right?
Okay.
Versus, and work with me here. How would you guys define nature versus normal? Natural versus normal. How would you define that? And what would you say is the difference between the two?
Well, I think normal just has to do with the environment that you're in or the society that you're in.
How
what
so?
everyone is doing. What is acceptable, what's not acceptable, what is like the thing that people do. So it might be normal for me to like go in my bathroom and take a dump. But
That's natural.
I mean, but
Well,
to go in my bathroom
bodily
in my
functions
house,
are natural.
and go take a dump. But then for someone else coming from somewhere, they were like, why would I poop in my house?
Uh-huh.
I would go out in the bush and I would poop there because I'm not going to shit
Yeah.
in the same place that I
I hope your cursing doesn't get us taken down.
Sorry.
But okay.
You can't curse on YouTube?
You know me, and I'm like the worst person when it comes to
Okay,
cursing,
well-
and I'm not even cursing.
Oh, I'm
but
sorry,
okay.
sorry.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I'll
like
try my best.
for us, it's normal, right?
I don't think you're trying at all, but okay.
For us,
Keep
it's
going.
normal
Yeah.
to poop in our house. For some people, it's like, why would I want to do that? I don't. So it just depends on your environment. It depends on how connected you really are to nature. Because for some people, nature and natural things is normal.
So how are you gonna connect poop to nature?
What?
You talking about that to connect it to
I'm just
nature?
saying to
How is
poop
pooping
in
outside
your
connecting you to
house.
nature?
Hold on. When I was asking about normal versus natural, like we didn't have to get on poop. Okay. So let's just pivot real fast and let's get to something that's like, more like, let me give an example. Let me help you out. Let me give an example, right? So normal has to do with conditioning.
Right.
Natural has to do with fitting into nature, right? Because there's the way nature functions. Like when you look at a cat, when you look at a dog, when you look at a frog, when you look at animals or you look at trees, you look at rivers, there's nature, right? And then you can see that there's a synergy and there's a harmony within nature, right? And you're not going to see a deviation from the synergy that nature functions or all of the things within nature abides by. But you can see a deviation from that in, societies that are removed from nature, right? So natural becomes about fitting into nature, right? And you can't refute or dispute fitting into nature. And then normal becomes about being removed from nature and which you can condition to become normalized, which means you could see someone, like if you grow up in a society where they're eating human beings, and as a child, you see them eating human beings, you will grow up and you will say, that's normal to me.
Yeah.
Well, survival of the fittest, right?
Okay. But, yeah. Like, you can say that's normal, right? Because that's what you see. That's what you grow up conditioned to believe as the norm, right? Normal. But if someone that doesn't eat people wanders into that society or that contained village and says like, hey, okay, nah, you're not supposed to be eating people, then they'll say like, nah, that's not, what are you talking about? That's not the way I was raised. Oh, damn, I unplugged the thing. They're like, that's not the way I was raised, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they'll be looking at you like, nah,
Right.
like, that's normal to me. And then you can be sitting there like, nah, like, that's not the way it actually goes in these areas that you find yourself connected close to nature and where it's about survival.
Mm-hmm.
So touch on that for me. Talk about that for me a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually a lot to unpack there, because we're talking about what's like normal and what's natural, right? For me, when I hear you explaining that, I have to think about like, when did human beings stop being in touch with nature? At what point did we, remove ourselves
Well,
from
is
that?
every human being disconnected from nature?
Well, not every human being, but we have to talk from a perspective of the society we live in, right? Most people in the society are out of tune with nature and out of tune with the realities of nature. And I have to question, I mean, at what point did that occur? Like, when did that happen? And I like history. That's like my favorite subject growing up. I would spend hours and hours in history class. Even after school, I would still be there with the history teacher. And one thing I've noticed is we talk a lot about Greek culture. So I have to wonder if this is something that started during those times, because when you look at Greek culture, there's a lot of art that we can see that's still giving us a reference of what times were like back in those days. And I don't know, I kind of feel like there's a lot of art of naked men and little boys and men touching little boys. So I think that, we have to kind of like start to look back there. Have you ever noticed like real Greek pottery? I'm not talking about the stuff in the museums. At least not the museums over here. I mean, have you seen the stuff that's in the museums in Europe? I mean, there's full on.
It's sexualized.
It's super sexualized.
It's sexualized.
But it's sexualized in a way in which, to me, is outside of nature, right? Because the foundation of nature is male and female. The reason why I'm saying that is because if she's pregnant right now, if she didn't have a husband to be with, she wouldn't be able to be pregnant, right? Now,
well, she could turkey baste.
Could do a lot of different things.
Yeah,
but
she
you
could
still
turkey baste.
needed the seed from a man, right?
True.
Yes.
True.
You can't get the seed from another woman, right?
What kind of woman?
It depends.
Well, come on, don't do that. You know what I really mean. We're not even doing.
What
it.
is a woman?
Listen, we'll answer that question later. Back to this point, right? I'm just trying to bring it back to the history of this going outside of nature, at least in terms of the topic, right? Because we're talking about transgenderism. And you would see in these cultures, like Greek culture, that certain things was acceptable, while in other cultures it wasn't. Like how she was explaining, okay, maybe in some cultures it's okay to pee or poop inside your house, but in other cultures it's not. So in Greek culture, I've noticed that it was even okay to have a deity or a god or a divinity who is actually a man but dressed up as a woman. So when I think of that and I look at that, I start to think of what we would call...
Why would that be a problem?
Why would that be a problem? Because gods, right, or the concept of God is what a human being looks to or looks up to find his origins, to find his creation. And even talking about the Christian Bible, right, there's usually like this one God that most people know of. But if you really, really know the real history of Christianity, then you would know that God has a wife. You would know that when God made Adam, he made Adam with a partner, Lilith, before there was an Eve. That's the true history of Christianity.
Wait.
That was deep. Conscious and human sacrifice.
Okay, keep going.
And if God had a wife, like there was a feminine aspect to the creator in the original text, in the original versions, right? And he created man with woman in the original text, in the original versions, right? Then that in itself is the origins in which human beings can see themselves, meaning that you can't go outside of that reality because that's the origins of even creation itself. You can't go outside of that. Now, if we have a culture in which the God can pretend to be a man when it's a woman or pretend to be a woman when it's a man, then what's going to be the foundation that's set forth for society? It's obviously going to be one that's following what the gods are doing. We have to kind of like look at that. And I think that it's dangerous really because those kinds of mindsets or those kinds of like cosmogonies as you would have it, or those kinds of mentalities is again going against the reality of nature, because I've yet to see any animal in nature be with the same sex. It's only a human thing.
some.
I've never heard of it.
Okay, so we were on a podcast not too long ago, and there was a brother. He was telling us about seahorses.
Yeah, something
Right.
like that.
He was saying something about seahorses, and he was saying, "Shout out to Real Radio Podcast."
The radio.
Like, and he was telling us that male seahorses, impregnate themselves, right?
Mhm.
So then, can you touch on that? But then before you touch on that, let me ask you a question, right?
Mhm.
Like, what do we really find who do we really find ourselves taught by, right?
Mhm.
Because who are we at the mercy of learning from?
Mhm.
Like, what system is really empowered today?
Well, that's exactly why I started with the Greeks, because to understand who or what is empowered today, you'd have to go back into the history and the origins of even the system. And going even back to the English language as we were talking about, right? The English language is a language that's mainly borrowed from three main languages, which
Hold on, pause. Y'all got Kaja Zariman? The real Kaja Zariman tonight.
Take notes.
Go.
it's really a language that its main basis is really three languages, which is Latin, which is what we can consider to be Roman, which is also just Greek. And then you have German, and then you have French. Now, going back to the history and the origins of this society and this system, even the way we govern ourselves is called democracy. Where's democracy coming from? It's of Greek origin. Even the way we structure our buildings, the way we structure our governments, everything is Greek origin. The way we even raise our families, everything is Greek origin. I'll get to the family part in a minute to explain why it's Greek origin. But thinking about it in that way, okay, if every single thing is of Greek origin, I even remember looking at the money, and then I'm looking at the buildings, and I'm looking at the old temples in Greece, and I'm like, this is the same thing. Everywhere I was going, it's Greek. Everything is Greek. Everything is Greek. All of it is Greek. So I'm thinking to myself, if it's all Greek, I'm remembering history class. Yo, we went over Greek history for like months. We touched on.
What did they start with? In the colonial schools, public schools, what did they start with? What's the history that they start with?
They always start with Greece. Always. It never fails. Why? Because, again, going back to where we get our origins from, we get our origins from the gods, right? Now,
no. Let's not even talk about us per se. Let's talk about the way that they kick it to us.
That's what I mean when we say us.
Yeah.
I'm not separating us here away from the entire system, because at the end of the day, we were raised by that, whether we want to accept it or not. It's just the reality it is. Everybody's raised by that system. So the ones who are in power, right, they're adhering to certain traditions going back to their ancestry, which is Greek culture, which is Greek ancestry, right? So if we want to talk about what's in power, what's in charge, it would have to be that. Now, going back to how they functioned as a society as a whole, pedophilia was okay. Cross-dressing was okay. Homosexuality was okay. So it's not a surprise if today that same thing is prevalent in today's culture, because it's a cultural thing, which is why, I'm from Jamaica. I'm born and raised in Jamaica, and culturally, I always knew those things to not be acceptable and not to be okay.
How come?
Now, I'll get to that. Really, you know what? Let me say this. The way it was kicked to me when I was growing up, because I grew up with Rastas, is if you look at the earth, there is the soil. Now, when the rain falls from the sky and the sun hits that soil after the rain falls, you see things start to grow. The woman is that soil. The rain that falls from the sky along with the sun's rays is entering into that soil. That is the same thing that is happening when a man lays down with a woman. That's the epitome of nature. That's a direct result of nature. Everything that we do has to mimic or mirror the reality of nature. So for a culture or a society to now come and then say it's okay for a man to be with a man when it doesn't bring forth the cycles of nature is against nature. So that's where our stance was coming from. And that's always been our stance. And I think that gets misunderstood because people think we're homophobic. And I don't even understand that word. I don't even like that word. Don't tell me I'm homophobic. I'm not scared of them.
Calm it down.
Yeah. Okay, so Medicado, let me ask you this. So we have this story, right? Like we all hear this biblical story because we're raised in a Greco-Roman society where we're conditioned and we're raised with these, biblical Abrahamic religion stories and these origin stories of the existence in the universe. What can you tell us about the story of Adam and Eve? Put it to the side, right? Put the story of Adam and Eve to the side, right? And then because Adam and Eve kind of becomes misleading because you have this aspect of Adam and Eve, right? And then you have this aspect of Adam and Eve, but then you have the divine feminine, right? Mm-hmm. Eve. You have the divine masculine, Adam, right? But then they're just kind of like pulling the Holy Ghost.
Right.
Like out of thin air, right?
It's already messing you up right there.
I'm not going to use the word.
Don't forget about the snake.
And the snake, right? Like, it just kind of seems like, they're kind of like twisting something around. So how would you compare that to the Kemetic, the Dogon creation story? Without like giving the whole story.
I think when we think about the Adam and Eve story and we really look at it, you can kind of see it and you're like, it doesn't really make sense, but I'll take it. And when you get into,
it's all you got.
It's all you got.
That's all you got.
Well, that's what they taught you, right?
Right. It's like, okay, this is how things started. I'll accept that. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't, when you think about it, it doesn't really make sense and it doesn't all add up. It does, like, there's.
Why not?
So, I mean, I'm not an expert on the Adam and Eve story.
Yeah.
But
but you're an initiate, so don't front.
Right. But
yeah,
I don't know the story so well that I can be like, well, this is it and this
but
is
then,
not.
okay, so then let me ask you this. Why is it that religion has the aspect of the divine masculine and the Holy Ghost, but then there's the aspect of the divine feminine removed?
I mean, obviously there's an agenda. There's an agenda that they want us to believe. There's things that they want to be missing from our...
Why?
I mean, we all know the power of the divine feminine, the feminine aspect of nature, and why it's necessary for things to continue and for things to flourish.
How come?
How come?
Yeah, how come?
I mean, it's just necessary. We see that in nature every single day. We don't just see one aspect that's more important than the other. We see a balance of
because you cease to exist. You cease to exist. Without it, you cease to exist.
Exactly.
If there's only the masculine aspect and then the feminine aspect is removed, you cease to exist.
Yeah. Yeah, I think...
You're pregnant, right?
I am. Yes, I am.
So
pregnant.
were you out here like throwing your hands in the air and like, God, give me the Holy Ghost? Like, what happened? Like, how did you get pregnant?
I mean, You know, the birds
No,
and the
I don't know.
bees.
The birds are, nah.
You know, you have to.
Look, I don't need
You don't
to know
have
the
to give us every
intimate- I
detail.
don't need the intimate
We don't need to know
details.
all of that.
Don't give him any intimate details because he's ready. He's ready to go.
Right.
But I'm saying like, would you have been able to get pregnant without a man?
Obviously not.
Wait,
there's
pause,
other
pause,
things you can
pause.
do these days.
Okay,
But
keep going.
Naturally, not normally, but naturally, you have to have a relationship. This is how I explained it to Hauti because he asked one day, like,
Who's Hauti?
Hauti is my son. My
How old is
firstborn.
Hauti?
He's 4.
4. Okay.
Yeah. So
Shout out to Hauti.
Shout out to Hauti. He asked one day, like, how did the baby get in there? And I was like, what? What do you mean? He's like, how did the baby get in your stomach?
Father's right here. He's off camera. You can't see him, but Kenny Bashut.
Baby daddy is in the
Dropping
building.
bombs.
And I was just like, I think you're gonna have to talk to your dad about that one. And we
I'm
tried
getting
to
in
figure
trouble
out.
by the producer. The producer, I don't know what he's saying, but he's telling me to either stop dropping bombs or to like something. But keep going.
Yeah, so I was like, you're
Should
gonna
have
have
never
to talk to
gave
your
me the
daddy about
sound. You
that.
never should have given me the sound buttons if you didn't want me to use them. But keep going.
I told him to direct the question to his daddy.
Okay. And what did Dad tell him?
And we kind of were like, let's
I
figure
put it
out
there.
how to.
Huh?
Let's
I put it
figure
there.
out how
You put it there.
to.
Okay.
No, not me. That's what Dad said.
Oh, okay.
Let's figure out how to kind of say this to him. We had to deliberate a little bit. How should we do this? And you know,
He's
after
4, right?
talking, he's 4, so
Yeah.
you don't want to give him too much detail.
He's like, well,
But
mommy was in heat.
no, that's not how it went.
So
But
how
after
did it
some
go?
deliberation, after
Yeah.
asking around, like, how did you, introduce, we came up.
So you
with,
asked advice from like
I asked advice,
people?
yeah.
Okay.
From people that know. And so we were told, and we kind of made our own story. It was like, one night we went to sleep together, and then we woke up, and the baby came while we were sleeping. Because kids can understand there's things that happen in the dream world, and there's things that happen in the non-material where something can manifest.
You think he's dumb?
No,
just
that's
keep-
why we said it like that.
Keep going.
So we explained it to him as like something happened while we were sleeping together. So he understands because like they have these questions.
So it wasn't God.
It wasn't. No,
It wasn't
was
just like-
something that we did together.
But is that the way you explained it to Hauti? Is that it was just, the dream world?
It was the non-material that manifested while we were together sleeping.
Keep going.
Well, that's not wrong. You didn't lie.
That's what I'm saying. So it's like, and then he didn't ask anymore. I think we started off saying something about like the seed and the water traveled to a place, and then he was just like, that doesn't make sense.
So you were trying to play him.
We were trying to play him at
You were
first,
trying to play
and
him.
then
You were trying to-
we had to take a different approach.
So you gave him the.
We gave him the nature
Adam and
of it.
Eve.
We
Yeah.
gave him the nature, and he understood that. But as far as the, I don't know, I guess the normal, the birds and the bees, or the, trying to tell some sort of story as a young kid that's not too kind of tainted with all of the BS these days. He was like, no, that doesn't make sense.
Man, Hauti. Good on Hauti.
Like, give me more. I don't.
Because
I
if
don't
he
get it.
would have had parents that would have just been like, hey, here's the story, and then beat him into submission,
Right.
then it would have
That's
been
just what it
different.
is.
Because it would have just been like, I told you, don't be asking me no more questions. And then,
And then that leads to what we see today, right?
yeah.
That leads to people, feeling like, I'm going to find out all these other things. I'm going to find out about this, and I'm going to find out about that. Because from young, it didn't make sense to them. It just didn't add up. So then they go and they
never
try to
added up.
find answers. Like,
Yeah.
they start searching. And today, there's a lot of things that you can find out, whether it be on the internet, at school, in your friend groups, TikTok, Instagram, books in the library, everything, so.
you mentioning about Hauti, it really makes me think a lot about how we're raised in this society, and we're really raised by the society. And what I mean by that is we all are falling under the cultural norms of our environment. Now, this society, again, is a Greco-Roman society. And it makes me think about how when the Greeks used to conquer a place, they would make sure the first thing they do was they would take all the strong men, and then they would either kill them or enslave them, or sometimes even what do they call it when they remove your male
Castrate?
yeah, they would castrate them.
But
Now this became a practice in those regions, in those areas, and it further stretched into the Roman Empire, because the Romans and the Greeks are pretty much the same people, just I guess you'd say another tribe.
How come?
Well, the culture that we call Rome is really just still the Greek culture, but it's just an evolution of it, which is the same thing that America is today.
Well, it's just a muscle, right?
Right. The Romans are more like the army, the guys that are sent to take things over. The Greeks are more like the mental masterminds, like the ones behind the scenes, controlling the things. And it really makes me think about how the way that they had their civilization set up, because their whole civilization was centered around parasitism. What I mean by that is they would go around and make sure that they would get other cultures and other people from other cultures and other regions of the world, and they would use them to further their own wealth and their own means. And they do so by military prowl, right? They would go in and conquer, and then they control. So the way that they would control a society, they did this through various ways, like what I just mentioned, making sure you get rid of the strong men. But something that was prevalent in their society was to make sure that you don't reproduce, because it's hard to maintain an empire that is so vast for so many years, for so long. It has to be difficult. I can't even imagine. Now, there's this thing called infanticide. I think that's the correct way. And I think that's the correct way you say that. What they would do is they would make sure they would keep the men from having only probably like one wife, or even if they had multiple wives or just had one wife, they would make sure that you only had a certain amount of children. They adopted this in China recently still. This is where the Chinese get this from. So every household was only allowed to have one child, one or two children, one boy, one girl. This is how they kept population control. And now in today's society, you see all these different mass movements, which happen to be anti-family, which happen to be anti-children. So it almost seems like the Greco-Roman society is still at play and is
Ladies
still
and
using
gentlemen,
the same.
Kebtah.
Of course
Keep
it's
going.
still at
Yeah,
play.
they're still using the same tactics, but they're using it in a very, very intelligent way. And that's why I think we see all these new movements like feminism, what do they call it? The transgenderism, which don't even make sense. How can you transgender? That means you're still going between one of two things.
I got you.
Why are you gay?
No.
Why are you gay?
Okay, keep going.
Yeah, it's just, when you really look at it, it just seems like this thing is really a mechanism. It's a tool of our own destruction, because who does it benefit to live those kind of lifestyles?
I mean, think about it. Our society, this American or colonial society, is really based on pleasure. It's based on freedom and liberty to do and be whatever you want to be, to be able to achieve whatever you want to achieve. And, you can do anything. You can be anything. That's what we
I
all
identify
want.
as a white man and an Indian man.
Exactly.
Send me my checks.
And that's
Keep going.
like the goal. That's the goal of the society. Is the American dream, to do whatever you want, be whatever you want, go from this place to this place, and finally have the pleasure and all of the things, the material wealth, everything. That's what we all strive for. That's why we do what we do every single day. So it's not surprising that, this way that they go about things and the way that we're conditioned is in a way where we are focused on those things. And there's different things and different systems put in place to make sure that we keep that at the forefront of our mind. Because even I think about EBT, food stamps, government assistance, right? And I'll give you a little personal example. You know, because I was living with my husband, they don't want to give me money. Like, they don't want to help me. They only want to help people that aren't like together, like the family is broken.
So you're saying, like, if you and your husband were at odds,
if we were at odds, they would be like, oh,
yeah.
I got you.
Yeah.
Like, I got your back. You know what I mean? But if we were together, because I remember one time I went into the office and they were like, you got 2 incomes? I don't know. You live with him?
Wait, so you were trying to go get like government assistance.
Oh, let's see if I can qualify.
Yeah.
And they were like, well, you got a man, so I don't know what we could really do. You might not qualify.
They said that?
Yeah, that's what she said to me.
Was the person handling your case a black woman?
Yes.
Okay. And she was like,
like,
I
I don't
know.
think it's going to work for you, honey.
Damn.
And that's how it is. Like, even going as far back, I was watching something, it was like in black and white. Like, they had the big fat TV. And it was like a little skit of, I guess, these...
You mean like when you went to the government?
No, it was
place?
like on Instagram or something like that.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Where it was like this woman, she had the man and she had her kids all in the house. And she had like a TV, she had a toaster, she had a radio, like she had all these things. And then the caseworker comes knocking on the door. So she had to hide her TV, her radio, and her husband in the closet. And when she came in, she was looking around trying to see, like, are you still living in poverty? Because if you ain't living in poverty and you ain't single, we going to take that money back because we don't need you if you're, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but that's like, it's funny because like, I remember there was somebody that was talking about like the tropes that you find in like movies. And then like there will be like the black student who's like gifted. And then the white teacher will go to like the gifted student's house. And then they'll be like, hey, your son or your daughter is like so gifted.
Right.
And then the parent will be like, books? We don't read books. Like,
right.
How dare you come in here with some books? And I feel like if you don't match up with like tropes that they set out for you, like the system sets out for you, then you're not able to benefit from the system.
Right.
Like they only want you to fit in like a certain trope where it's like you hate the man, you're at odds with the man, you're, fighting with the man, or, like the man is not around. It's like, I don't even know who the baby daddy is.
Yeah, because then even then it's like, well, do I really need this man? If I could just go and get what I need from the system, I don't really need to fight for my relationship. I don't need to fight for my family. I'm good. The system got me. And I know people that actually really, truly think that way. And it's true. They'll give you everything that you need. It comes to a point where you don't really need it.
Send me everything. Whatever you're talking about, send it to me. I identify as white and Indian. Send it to me.
Don't forget, I'm a lesbian billionaire, so I can help with whatever you need.
You're going to get us canceled. Like, you're going to get us canceled. Yeah. I'm towing the line here. I'm trying to be, I'm trying to be, like nice here.
My pronoun is master.
My pronoun is, no, I can't say that. I can't curse. But my pronoun is F around and find out.
Wow.
So try me. Okay, but let me ask you this, right? Okay, let's pivot a bit. Let's say you walk into the bathroom, right? And I'm there, right? I'm in the bathroom. I'm in the ladies' bathroom, or he's in the ladies' bathroom, right? No, it's not gender neutral. How would you feel?
I would be like, is this? I would have to walk back and be like, make sure that it was the woman's bathroom.
Okay. Uh-huh.
Make sure it wasn't a family bathroom or some shit like that.
How would you feel? Would you feel comfortable with a man in the woman's bathroom?
Absolutely not.
Why?
I mean,
Are there urinals in the women's bathroom?
That's what I'm asked. I was about to say, like, are there urinals there? Like, are we gonna have stalls? I mean, if
No, he'll just sit down and pretend he.
is it just men, or is it men that are identifying as women, or is this like bathroom free for all that we're talking about?
So,
if I'm going into a woman's bathroom, I expect it to only be women in there.
Well, what
you
is a woman?
transphobic?
What is a woman though? That's the question, right? What is really a woman? Because now a woman can be pretty much anything. Because if you even look at it in sports, you have these men who are quote unquote transitioning just to be able to participate in women's sports, which to me is essentially the same thing as going into a woman's bathroom.
bruh, if I let me just be transparent. Like, if I can go back in time and go back to high school right now, like if I was in high school right now, I would be transgender. I would be transgender because I would totally be a man that would play like women's sports, and then I'd be like, give me
The best.
all of the scholarships,
Everything.
like all the scholarships. I'd be running track. I
No,
would be
this is
pushing,
real. This
like
is
we
really
would
happening.
be running track. I'd be pushing you down. We'd be playing basketball. I'd be dunking on you
No,
all day,
It's a
every day.
no.
every
It's
day.
It sounds funny, but it's actually a serious thing.
It really
Because
is
I saw an MMA fight. It's the women's MMA, bro. This
Bro, can we sign
man
up for MMA? I'll
went
be
in that
transgender and
ring.
you be-
No.
No. He really went in that ring and broke this lady's jaw, her whole
it's really
skull.
happening.
And I'm like, bro, why are we allowing this?
There
Are
was
we serious?
There was a transgender. There was a man that transitioned into being a woman, and he was a swimmer, and in the ranking
Oh, yeah.
was like not doing good at all.
They were
And
like
then,
400 something.
like
or
super-
500
like
something.
trash.
Yeah.
And then went and was like, I'm a woman now, and won the national championship.
Look, if I was in the UFC, like I'd be like, are you transphobic? I would transition to becoming like if I was like a UFC fighter or like an athlete, like, and this is me just being transparent. If like money was the only thing I was after, I would totally just like become like a woman, and then I would just play like women's sports.
Well, things
Because
are really
like then there's
changing.
no way you would hold me like you, like I'm dunking on you all day every day. I'm dropping like 50 points, and this is like someone that is not particularly like, phenomenal in athletics, but like I would be in there like, bruh.
I
You
think
know-
some people are taking that route in schools and stuff, and then maybe some people feel that they want to just feel how they feel inside, being seen in that way.
You
And-
know,
I feel rich.
Let me-
Send money.
Can I say this? Because this is it's a very serious thing, and it's kind of I don't know, it's kind of heart wrenching. Is that a phrase? Is that an English phrase?
that's-
Heart wrenching, because when you really look at it, I think it's dangerous, because necessarily in agreement with the feminist movement per se, depending on like where they're really going with it, because I think there's certain things that make sense and there's certain things that don't. But as a whole, right, women have pretty much fought for specific things, certain things. Women have gone through certain things. There's certain things that Mary Cara goes through that I can never, ever, ever understand. There's certain things that she feels that I can never, ever feel. There's certain things that she has witnessed that I can't even explain. So I think it's very much a serious issue for me to now,
to be a man.
right, the same way you wouldn't know how it feels like to be me. I think it's a very serious issue for me and for the whole world as a whole to now come and have to deal with someone who wants to be called a woman when we know what a real woman is. I mean, think about it. Even with these feminist movements, right? So all of the rights that women have now fought for to be equal, so-called equal to men, right? Because there's no such thing as equality, right? Because you can do things I can't do, I can do things you can't do. There's no such thing as equality. That's just reality. That's nature, right? Now, For
If I
you,
identify as a woman, can I give birth?
What?
no,
What?
no. Let this. But for you, as a woman, any woman at all, to have all the
Just a
rights that
question.
you fought for, right? Now come have it infringed upon by a man saying he's a woman. What are we gonna do? Are we gonna get rid of all of the women rights movements? Because they don't exist.
I'm
How can it
interested to
exist?
see what
Why
this
did
looks
you
like
What did they fight for?
in the future?
Where's the equality anymore? This is a very it doesn't make sense to me. Are we gonna make sense of that?
I don't know if we can. I don't think it's about making sense. It's just about the way that you feel. It's not about it making sense.
Bomb
It's not
drops.
about it being logical or being, natural. It's about the way that you feel.
Why are you gay?
That's what it comes down to.
Okay, so let me ask you this, right? So you're a mom, right?
I am.
You send Hawiti to a public school, right? And then Hawiti shows up one day and he says, I feel like a woman. And then they come to you and they say, well, we have allowed Hawiti to transition to a woman.
Meaning the school? The school comes
The
to
school,
her?
the school. The government says, we have allowed your son to I'm like even afraid to ask this question the way she's looking at me. Like, let's say that they say, hey, like we've allowed Hawiti to identify as a woman and transition to another gender or another sex.
That's happening. That's
What's going on?
happening. That's not
Walk me through that.
ever going to. First of all, this is why I can't send my son to public school. Or, I don't know where I can send Hauti anymore.
I mean, you're a mom.
Yeah.
So, like, just tell me from a mom's perspective. Like, I'm the principal, and I show up, and I'm
depends
like,
on what kind of parent you
hello, I would like to inform you, because they don't even have to inform you nowadays. Nowadays, they're doing it in a way where it's like, the parents don't need to know about the children and what the children are doing and how the children are feeling and if the children are transitioning or any of that. So
Right.
then let me ask you this. What's happening?
I don't see myself in that position.
But walk me through it. Put
but
yourself in the position,
If
then
I
walk me through it.
was,
Yeah.
by some crazy happenstance,
Mm-hmm.
I would feel like I would have to sue them or something like that. Like
Call
I would
me.
try to. I
Call
would
me.
try.
No, don't call
I'm
this
not
guy.
throwing hands.
This guy is coming through with the gasoline and the matches, and he's gonna just burn down the school.
I just feel like at this point, parents, when
Which
you
is not a
give
problem.
your child to the public school system, you really just don't have control over anything. The way that they are indoctrinated is so, it's just so intense.
You should not have
You-
given me this soundboard. Okay, keep going.
You don't have control over who your kids become and what they're exposed to and how they're taught. So it's just like, at that point, you're kind of powerless. You can't really do anything, because then if you try to go against it, it's like child endangerment. Like
wrong,
you're
nigga.
endangering the life of your child by not accepting who they are. Now they're suicidal. Now they don't want to live anymore. Now they want to run away and all these things. And it's like, you're not a good parent because you're not going along with the way that I'm raising your child. The system is raising your child at that point. So you don't really have power. You don't have the power to say, you can't do that or no. It's like you barely even spend time with them at that point. You just see them in the morning and at night. And then all throughout the day, all throughout the week, they're with their real parents.
You mean
and
the
their
teachers?
the teachers,
Yeah.
and the way that they want to raise
Or
those
like fake
kids
parents,
up.
not
Yeah.
real parents. But
Yeah,
fake
but
parents.
like the people that spend the most time with them and teach them the most things.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's the case. And I wish it was different. I wish I could feel comfortable sending my child to a school or something like that, but it's just not the case.
So then let me ask you this. As a mother, as an initiate, what is the importance of educating your child
I mean,
with the things you've been educated with from what we're a part of, the Dogon tribe, being an initiate of the Dogon temples? What would you say is important to instill in your children?
I mean, the education of just a person is the most important thing, because that's what's going to indicate how they move through life and how they see themselves, how they see the world, how they understand
Alignment
their
with
place.
nature.
Right. Yeah. So I think educating your child becomes the most important thing about having a child, is like educating them and making sure that they grow up with the fundamentals of fitting into nature. And, I know the importance of it more so just because of the lack of it that I had, and then growing up and seeing all of this emptiness and all of the kind of missing pieces that I had when it came to just being a full human being. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, I already know that my child is going to understand so much more than me by like a young age. And even now,
It's crazy.
and I was talking to another mother about this. It's like, when your child surpasses you, it must feel crazy. And, you want that. You want them to kind of get the exposure that you didn't have. But then it like becomes a point where it's like, maybe they can teach you more than you can even teach them because of what you've been able to expose them to.
Or maybe they'll take care of things that you weren't able to take care of.
Exactly. And I mean, that's what we hope for, and that's what we wish for, and that's what we're doing for right now, for our children to have a bigger and better opportunity to fit into what they're really meant to do in this lifetime. So education is the most important thing, and that's why I try my best and I do my best to make sure that I'm educating them in the way where they can achieve what they came to achieve and fit into nature in the way that they're meant to, and I even see how my blind spots and the things that I wasn't taught or educated on is trickling over, that I still have to work on as an adult, to make sure that it doesn't seep in and it doesn't kind of overpower what I'm trying to teach them now. So it's just, it's of the ultimate importance.
Nowadays, the schools, they're actually hiding the children from the parents when the parents don't have the same values or perspectives as
They
what
say
the
you
state.
can, like, misgender the child, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, how would you feel if you had your child taken away from you because the state or this Greco-Roman society is dictating to you that you don't know how to raise your child because you're not going along with how we deem that society should go?
I mean, pretty powerless. It just sucks. And this happens to people for real. This is really
but
happening today.
I don't know. Like, I know you personally, right? I don't think you would just take that laying down.
I wouldn't want to take it laying down, but it's like, in
I think
reality,
you would be here like, what can we do?
I would definitely be like, what
Yeah.
can we do? And like
To
try to
burn this
figure it
down.
out.
Yeah.
But
Call
at the end of the day,
Do not call this guy.
I'm not calling Kadri.
This guy's gonna be there like Jesse Jackson.
He's gonna
Yeah.
burn the place
Yeah, he's
down
gonna just
with a smile on his face.
exactly.
But I mean, when it comes down to it, you really just don't have that much power when it comes down to it, because
Well, then where do you have power?
I mean, you have power in the education that you give your child and the way that you bring them up,
Or where
and
you
not
are.
giving, and where you are as
Where
well,
you are, right?
and not giving them up to the system. That's
Yeah.
like the only power you have, is like maintaining a certain bubble around your child. That's like what you have to do these days. Like, you can't just let your child be with anybody, do anything like you can in other places where they actually have principles and they actually have the values that align with nature and align with you figuring out and understanding who you are as a spirit, who you are as a person, what your destiny is, and they nurture that because they know it's necessary for the community. They know it's necessary for them and their maintenance, how they have to live their life or they need to live their life. And they understand the importance of it. Here, it's not like that. You know, in places that have been colonized, they lost that, where they don't, the goal of the community and the goal of family and humanity and all of that is arbitrary.
I think one of the most interesting things about this topic or this conversation is it's really these transgender movements are a movement in order to express the freedom or the rights for people to be who they want to be or be what they want to be. Yet in the same breath, mothers like you, families who don't have those same values or principles that the system is trying to raise us to have are the same ones who are hindering our own freedom in order to express our own values and our own principles. And I think that's where this whole debate or this whole topic can get very touchy, because you want me to conform to this thing, but you don't want to accept or respect me and accept and respect my values. And it's just a testament to colonization, because again, this is really just going back historically to how we've been colonized and we've been educated by an enemy. An enemy who is different in perspective, an enemy who is different in spirituality, an enemy who is different in livelihood, an enemy who's just different. Because going back to this Greco-Roman thing, this is just not our way. This is just not our way of life. And I personally think we can't continue to allow these people and these things, these policies, whatever it may be, to continue to infringe upon us. Because regardless of how much the state, the governments, and all these things have power, you would see that there are people who are fighting back. And I think that's the most important thing we have to keep in mind. There's ways that we can fight back, whether it be politically, spiritually, physically, whatever. I'm all with the physical, by the way. But there's always ways we can fight back.
There's so much smoke.
I know. I mean, the interesting thing is this, right? Is like when we really look at this issue and we really look at the, the arguments and the stances that everybody's taking, we really find ourselves dealing with like a family issue, right? Because at the basis of family is the aspect in which you cannot evade, right? Which are the crucial components for a family to exist. And for a family to truly be defined by like a family in order to bring life, not what you want to define a family to be based on what you want it to be. Like in order for a family to be defined by what brings life, you have to have a man and a woman. And then the man or a person, I'll say it however you need it to be said, a person with a penis and a person with a vagina. In order for those two things to come together, for the friction and the process of sex to happen, for the child to then have the opportunity for the seed to enter into the egg, for the sperm to enter into the womb, however you need me to say it, the birds and the bees, in order for the child to come. And I think that families are under such attack right now that we find ourselves even unable to say like a woman, and then you have to say things like birthing person, where all
I'm
of
not
these
calling you that.
I am a birthing person. You can call me that.
Not,
All right,
no,
whatever.
I'm not doing that.
he said he's not calling you that, but it's the way he said it too. He's like, I'm not calling you that.
Just so you know.
Yeah, just so you know. And I mean, that's fair, because I mean, if we truly live in a society where your freedoms are protected, then why is it that the freedoms of traditional values are under attack? because it seems like traditional values are under attack, and it seems like you don't have a place or you don't have the ability to be somebody that aligns with nature and to be somebody that aligns with traditional values without coming under attack by like a mob that wants to force you to use verbiage and use talking points and to use positions and stances that they only feel comfortable with dictating you to have. And, you know, a lot of people don't understand what spirituality is really about. Because a lot of people think spirituality is about like, hey, you know, like, namaste. I feel so aligned to be here today. And I just, like, you know, I would like to give a shout out to the powers that be in the existence, because us coming together has really made me feel like this is exactly where I'm supposed to be aligned with. And then it's like you think like spirituality is about talking like a really bad like late night radio jazz host. And then you just kind of like function in this way where you are talking like this person that's like, you know, everything's about like what you feel, and you're like, oh, this feels right. Like my heart feels right. Like everything feels good. And then it's just about like your feelings, which is what a lot of the positions that, you know, the Greco-Roman society is centered on, which is like feelings. And then you really remove yourself from the aspects of nature. And eventually, like, you know, like when you were growing up and like, you know, you used to go, like you used to wild out when you were just around your mom.
Of course she does.
And then, whoa, and your
What's
your
happening
mom,
right now?
and your mom would be like, just wait till your dad gets home. And then you'd be like, no, oh no, I'm sorry, Mom, I'm sorry. Because like you would know that dad's coming home, and then there'd be that like
It's going
discipline,
down.
like
Yeah.
there'd be that aspect of rigidity that's coming into play. And I think that we've become so removed from nature that that aspect of discipline is removed. And, you know, these aspects or these societies, these indigenous societies that are still connected with nature. And I'm not talking about the indigenous societies that are selling themselves out to gain a buck or to gain $1.
Who you talking about?
You know what I'm talking about certain indigenous
Say it.
so-called this guy I mean, okay.
No.
We'll say it next episode.
I'm talking about these so-called indigenous elders that are willing to say whatever needs to be said to enter into whatever Western, modern, you know, contemporary circles that they can enter into in order to be accepted. And they'll say whatever needs to be said because they're just trying to get paid. And they'll sell themselves out to the, you know, to the Western mentality. They will sell themselves out to the, you know, the Western society, and they'll say like, yes, of course, like, yes, it's okay for you to be this way. This is exactly what exists. But then you go to their villages and then you don't find it.
Two-spirited.
You go to their villages and then they're not sitting here like,
Why are you gay?
it doesn't exist. And then, you know, there's this dishonesty because there are indigenous people like, I learned the hard way that not every indigenous is standing on the same thing. Because there are a lot of indigenous that just aren't about really preserving natural in terms of fitting into nature laws. Because there's a lot of indigenous societies out there that will sell their principles, their taboos, their customs, their ways of living that have been preserved for thousands of years down the river just to be able to go to the UN and get on their knees and beg for crumbs. There's a lot of so-called indigenous societies that will go to these European, you know, constructs, these colonial institutions and beg to be accepted. And we're not about that life.
Name them. Name them.
You said
Name them?
Name them.
He said, look, I'm talking about like a lot of
We're not afraid of nobody. Name them.
No, we're not. We're not afraid. But you know, like you can do your own research. Like I don't have to tell you how to think. Like I don't have to go out there like and you know make things easy for you because I want you to take the ingredients and I want you to put it together. Because I mean like it's kind of like it's kind of disappointing, not kind of, it's very disappointing, and it's really kind of disgusting and pitiful that you see people willing to sell out their culture in order to be accepted by the colonial societies, in order to, you know, gain whatever they can in order to move forward within these institutions and these colonial institutions, whether they gain, you know, like, verification status or land protected status from these, you know, the UN, and they're like, oh yes, of course, you know, these are religious things and things like that. Because what's really going on is it's called, for those that know what I'm talking about, it's called hoes and pimps. And you're getting pimped. You're just a hoe. And you're getting pimped.
That's a drop.
Because what's happening is these so-called indigenous, you know, societies and elders are willing to just sell you down the river in order to get what they need financially. And hey, they'll take it. And they like it. And hey, it's good for them. So I just want to challenge everybody to know that not every indigenous society that you come across, indigenous organization that you come across, is really standing on the same thing and is really about that life. Because we're not for the destruction of family. We're not for, you know, selling out our morals and our values and our taboos just to make $1 and just to feel accepted. And it's never going to be about that, because we're standing for something bigger. We're standing for something that's been around since the dawn of time, that has been around for thousands of years, way before the colonial society ever woke up and decided that they wanted to make a calendar and start everything from zero, which is why we find ourselves in the time 2023, right? Because things have been around for a lot longer than 2023 years. So when you're ready to wake up, when you're ready to really come around, when you're ready to really, you know, like to get hip to the game and really get, you know, equipped to really find what's really real and what's really happening, you know where to find us. Now, we're going to be transitioning to a...
Transitioning?
I know, right? Transitioning, right?
We're the best word to use right now.
Yeah, right. We're moving on to our time on the podcast that is called Rapid Fire, right? So we're going to be touching on current events, and we're going to be touching on it for a short period of time, and we're just going to touch on current events, and we're going to give you that, you know, that indigenous Dogon perspective, and we're going to keep it moving, and we're going to give you something to think about, and then you're able to find us whenever you're ready to find us. So, Medikata, can you read that first current event for us?
Arcturus is the new COVID variant.
E02, do you got anything? I don't even know.
You know that's some Greek. You know that's some
Arcturus?
Greek stuff. Arcturus.
Like, where do they get these names from?
Do you have anything to give us in terms of context? Evidently, it's a new variant. It's a new COVID
and it's
variant.
like pink eye, and it seems like allergies. I read
500% increase in Asia.
Wow.
I've seen a lot of people wearing masks lately, and I
Okay,
pointed
so
it out.
Did you ever play Pokemon?
No.
So there's a Pokemon that's called Articuno. And you know what I'm talking about, right? You know what I'm talking about, right? There's a Pokemon called Articuno, and it's like a bird. Like, I remember being a kid and watching Pokemon, and there's these Pokemon that it's like called the 3 legendary birds. So there's like a bird that's like fire, there's a bird that's like electricity, and there's a bird that's ice. And the ice bird is called Articuno. So I'm sitting here and I'm like,
There's a
bruh.
fourth one.
What was the fourth one?
The rainbow one.
What's the name of the rainbow one?
No, there's
Transgender?
5. There's remember the Logia and then the other one.
LGBTQ.
All right,
It's funny. It's right. He's a rainbow bird. I just thought of it.
There's 6. There's 6 of them.
Yeah, there's 6 of them.
There's 6.
Clearly, you didn't finish the game.
Bro, like I stopped playing Pokemon a long time. I stopped playing Pokemon. Okay. Anyway, it sounds like a Pokemon. COVID is not,
COVID's
like,
back.
yeah, COVID's back. So,
Well, it never left.
all right. So now we have. All right, Kajazurmi, can you read the next one, please?
Parents concerned as new state laws restrict rights of transgender children.
Restrict them?
And then what's the next one?
Bans on transgender children youth participation in sports.
Okay.
What's that about?
So basically, I'm telling you, you guys are lucky. Like, you see me. I'm like 6'1", 230 pounds. If I was coming
would
up
feel
in this time,
comfortable doing that.
bruh, I would do it. There was a movie that came out with like Amanda Bynes and Channing Tatum. It's like He's the Man. It's about like a woman that like dresses up like a dude just so she can like, get like a scholarship or something like that. And it was like a joke. It was like a joke at the time.
You could joke about that.
But you could joke
Certain
about it. But
time.
now it's like we're living in that movie.
Yeah.
Like that movie's for real. There are laws that are in Washington. They're getting passed right now.
Basically, if a child wants to transition and the family
That if a child wants to transition and the family doesn't want it to happen,
they can take the child away.
they can take the child?
Yeah.
Especially
In Canada? Oh, yeah, that's right. I saw this thing, and they were talking about in Canada where they will protect the child from
That's
the
protection.
like the parent, because if the parent doesn't agree with the child wanting to transition, they'll protect the child, and
Yeah,
they
I
won't
was-
even tell the parent.
I was watching this video on Instagram of this person that transitioned when they were younger, and they were now an adult. They were like almost 30, and they
30?
changed their mind. As they grew up, they changed their mind because they made the decision when they were young, and they changed their mind, and they were really, really upset about the fact
I don't know
that
what you're saying.
they were able to do that. Okay, the next one.
Oh, okay.
Dalai Lama
We're
apologizes.
being told we need to wrap it up. The Dalai Lama apologizes after him asking child to suck his tongue, sparks outcry. Okay.
I don't
So-
know if that's what really happened.
What do you mean?
Because I watched a video without the blur.
Did he say that? Or because
Bruh,
look,
he
there's
says
this,
it.
there's
just seemed
AI
like
and stuff out here
'cause
now.
People that
You don't
were
really.
there and people that know about that culture and who he is aren't saying the same thing that our society is saying about it.
Right.
But hold on. Here's the thing, right? Is there was something do you guys know who Penn and Teller is? They had a TV show at some point, and they were talking about how like at some point they had this journalist on there. This was years ago, and they had a journalist on there, and they were doing an expose on the Dalai Lama, and they were talking about how the Dalai Lama is like he's basically like a cult leader, right? And like he wants Shangri-La back. Like I guess that's like the area that he like the kingdom, like wherever his kingdom is, Shangri-La. He wants it back because he lives like a king, and everybody else is just basically like poor. And how like they have those kind of practices. But let me just say this, right? The Dalai Lama is like
One of
if you
them.
support the Dalai Lama, you have problems. You got problems because if you can see somebody that's comfortable going on video saying like, "Hey, suck my tongue,"
Are
with
we
a
sure
child,
that's
it's for real.
the
It's for real.
translation?
Yeah, that's
He didn't suck
bro.
his
He
tongue.
said it in English.
He said it in
He
English.
kissed him on the lips.
It was
He
on
kissed
the
him on the
cheek.
lips. Nah. Hold on. I'm going to extrapolate on this because the Dalai Lama, like, bruh, you got problems. You got problems and you need help because if you're out here doing this where you're telling a child to suck on your tongue.
I'm just not
and they were
sure.
clapping. They were clapping.
I'm not sure
They
if
were clapping.
the narrative is real, what they're putting in the media and saying about it if that's what really works.
Like I said, there's AI out here. I don't know what's going on.
Who knows?
I don't know.
Man,
I don't know anything.
don't listen to these guys. Like, because they're just out here trying to defend
No,
the
hold
Dalai
on.
Lama.
Let me say this. I'm not defending the Dalai Lama. I'm saying there's AI out here. I don't know what happened in that video.
Bro, it's
but
not a Drake
I know and I agree that these people, like the Dalai Lama, are definitely involved in those inner circles of the secret society, which we
Yes.
were talking about earlier.
Yes.
The Greek-Roman thing. Because if you didn't know, the Greeks colonized like all the way to Asia. So
And
there's a
they're
lot
on
of
some, like-
culture
hold on.
that's
You are gay.
yeah.
You are
Okay,
gay.
weak
Exactly.
and traumatized.
You are
Right.
Survivors
Okay,
found 89 bodies recovered in Kenya starvation cult.
What kind of cult?
What is that? What?
A Christian cult?
Not surprised.
to starve themselves to gain salvation.
What?
That reminds me of the hanging cult. You know the cult that hanged themselves
For
and they
pleasure.
had no more
They had no more
members.
members because everyone was hanging themselves.
Everyone's gone. They're like,
Okay,
I
so
don't
wait.
think this is gonna
So
work.
like, what was the promise? Like, you're gonna hang yourself for salvation? I mean, you're gonna starve yourself for salvation?
Stretchers to the hospital, and while they were being brought on stretchers, they were saying, praise Jesus.
Praise Jesus,
Praise Jesus.
Wow.
bro. The way that
Jesus
They-
fed people with one fish.
Listen,
he didn't say
listen.
starve.
yeah, but he like turned one fish into like hundreds of fish, right? Like, but the thing I don't understand is the way that they're able to go into Africa. Like, bruh, like I need everybody in Merita in Africa to just like cut it out.
It's juju.
Because like the way that they're
Jesus
coming
is taking
through,
over.
they're coming through with this like these like Christian cults. Like, just stop, cut it out.
Bro, it's juju, son. They gotta be.
Juju or not?
It's got to be some kind of. It actually is a kind of juju.
No, it's because
we had a similar situation in Jamaica with this cult leader who got the people to start
Jim
killing.
Jones.
No. That's Guyana.
Oh,
This was recent.
shout out to Guyana.
This was recent though. This happened like last year. There's a cult leader in Jamaica who he forced the people to call himself Your Excellency. He had all these different rings and stuff with all these different entities and stuff. He was controlling that. Let's just move on.
Okay,
'Cause that's a whole
moving on.
nother topic.
Read the next one for us.
Elon Musk shows off updates to his drain ship.
Brain shit.
Brain.
Chips, and says he's going to install
Bro, now
one
you
on
got everybody out here
himself
thinking we can't
when
read.
they are ready. No,
Brain chip?
they wrote it wrong. Brain chips, yes, brain chips.
So
Okay.
what do these brain chips do?
The
Do they
Neuralink, you don't
help
know about
Yeah,
that?
you don't know about neuro. It's like
No.
basically the Matrix. You seen the Matrix?
Yeah.
It's like the same kind of thing.
Wow.
Okay, so hold on. Let me just say this. Elon Musk is quite possibly the most intelligent, stupid person I've ever seen in my life. Because, like,
I wouldn't say intelligent. I would say smart.
whatever. He's the smartest, dumb person I've ever seen in my life. Because, like, he does things. Like, he's like a villain from, like, a movie. Like, he does things where you're like, oh, my God. Like, the next thing he's doing, you feel comfortable with him doing. Like, but it just seems like he's a villain from, like, an Austin Powers movie. Like, with everything he's doing. Like, Neuralink sounds like it sounds like the plot of, like, a really bad villain from, like, a James
So
Bond
you just get
movie.
to download information into your brain.
Yeah.
You're connecting to the World Wide Web through your brain.
Like,
Wow.
what is going on in the world that Elon Musk is out here talking about, let's do Neuralink.
You think
and
Elon
people
Musk?
are
you think-
supporting it.
You think Elon Musk stinks?
Like, what, he stinks?
You think
oh
he stinks?
my god.
Like, he doesn't shower?
Yeah, you think so?
Bro,
Why do Western
such a
maps
strange question,
shrink
'cause
Africa?
Because his name is Musk.
Oh. You know what? I think
Must
we need to
and
cut.
must
Okay,
is
keep
two
going.
different things.
Yeah. Yeah, I know exactly. Sir, like, you know what? Okay, keep going.
Next one. Why do Western maps shrink Africa?
Because I don't want you to know that every continent outside of Africa can fit on the continent of Africa. Because they're trying to downplay it, because they're trying to keep you distracted and make you think that. That's why they start in the colonial schools, these public schools. That's why they start history with the Greco-Roman, history, because they want to diminish where the Greco-Romans stole everything from.
Yeah.
So
pretty much.
they're just, just hating. They're just hating. It ain't none more than hating.
It's a
none more
direct
to it.
threat to the entire establishment because everything in Africa is in opposition to the principles and the values that this entire system is built upon. So we have to, or they have to, diminish that as much as possible, because the world was ran very differently as it was today. So we have to get rid of how it was ran before. And Africa itself is a symbol of the old world.
Well, they're lying too. Like they're lying because it's like a person that cheats off like the smart person. Oh, I'm about to drop it. The fourth one that we haven't dropped the whole podcast. I'm about to drop it. They're lying because what they're doing, I can't see that. What they're doing is that they're trying to make it seem like, you know, that they came up with it and they're the ones that are the original people that, you know, are the origins of the society. But in actuality, we just have to ask them one question.
Why you always lying? Why you always lying?
Okay, what's next?
How many Americans hold New Age beliefs?
Everybody.
There's a study that was done asking Americans what kind of beliefs they hold, the top being karma. That was the most
Karma.
popular belief. Then it goes hypnosis, extraterrestrials and UFOs, spirit possession, manifesting reincarnation, astrology, parallel realities, telepathy, mediums, chakras, dream catchers, psychedelic readings.
I can't repeat all of that. So if you can't hear that, just know that
People are
it's
searching.
just a whole bunch of shit.
People are
Fairies?
searching.
Wait, what about fairies? What was
Fairies?
the percentage of people that bought into fairies? 12%? 12% of Americans believe in fairies? I mean, this is the thing, right? Is there's a lot of like real things that are spiritual, that like there are real entities, there are real beings that exist that, you know, that you can't see, like if you're just eating McDonald's and just like out here, like, you know, like thinking like, oh yeah, like I'm spiritual because I, like, you know, I hate my mom and my dad and I listen to, you know, I don't know, New Age spiritual Eckhart Tolle and believe in manifestation, the law of attraction and whatever. Like, yeah, cool. Like, but it doesn't make you spiritual. So like there's real things that are out here that are spiritual, that are actually based on like real aspects of nature that people just have confused. And the sad part is like, you know, a lot of real aspects of nature, like they condition you to be scared of it and to stay away from real aspects of nature. And that's the depressing part, is because like there's real things out here
Yeah.
that are like really a part of nature that they make you think aren't real or do not exist because they classify them as legends or horror movies and, you know, spirits and, you know, like ghosts and things like that. It just your ancestors basically, and like, you know, people that need help and are trying to get in contact with you and you don't understand the communications. And it just like, don't believe everything they show you on TV and in movies, because
They give you the problem and then they give you the solution.
well, they give you their solution.
Right.
No,
They-
they not give
Many
you the
different
problem.
options.
They create the problem,
Right.
and then give you their
It's
solution.
not a problem. It's not a problem. It's just misunderstanding.
Yeah.
Hmm.
People are experiencing real things that are really happening, and then, you know, the things that we have here at the Earth Center and all of these things, it's not on the top, you know, because it's really giving people solutions. You know, that's not something they want to
Yeah.
promote.
They're not gonna promote something for real.
Yeah,
they're
I've seen
gonna
fairies.
promote. Okay, they're gonna promote. They're gonna promote things like, would you want a designer baby? 1 in 3 Americans are saying that they would want a designer baby. So like a designer baby, or
Like you get to
Americans
choose
open
their
to having
features.
genetically enhanced child. So it's like what? It's like you.
Like I want them to have blue eyes and curly hair, and you know.
Like I want my child to be Michael Jordan. Like I want my
So-
child to be
6'2".
Lionel Messi.
So I get to dictate.
Wait. Let him give us a context. Having any genetic deficiencies, like what? Autism,
Like they don't want them
Like-
that.
Down syndrome.
You know, things that people come with. So they
I mean, like, look, if you give me the option, you're like, you can genetically modify your child to not have Down syndrome, I'm taking it. Like, I'm going to take it. I'm just going to be honest. But if, like, I don't know are you talking about, like, just.
I mean,
like,
they go in and change the baby. Like they,
Oh yeah, so then
they
that's
change the
that's
baby
not
after
that's
they've
not
already
natural.
been.
Yeah,
So
that's
they
not
can make the
natural.
baby not look like you or the father.
I don't know.
So what are they using to do that, though?
Yeah, like what is going on?
Are they using like if like you got impregnated by your husband and his sperm, so then are they coming through like somebody else's sperm and being like, this is the way you get it?
I don't know how they're
Because
doing
then
it.
would that
but
be your baby?
They're
anymore?
doing it.
Man, this is like
So-
what the hell is going on?
So they're artificially taking or manipulating the intelligences of these children.
Bro, don't go too far. No one knows what the hell you're talking about when you say that.
Yeah, whatever.
Like, I know what you're talking about.
As
we know
of
what you're talking about. Nobody
2023,
else.
Black Lives Matter has $42 million.
Send me some.
What about my Black
life
life?
matters. Yeah, all of
I
our
didn't see
lives
none of that
matter.
money.
Yeah, I didn't see none of that.
Shit.
Yeah, send me some. But I
Where they
identify
live?
as a white man and an Indian man.
I think the founder of Black Lives Matter is living quite an extravagant life.
Oh, yes.
Where
yeah.
she live?
She
Where's
live
she
in
at?
mansion.
Where's she at? Send me a check.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
been a lot of
1506 Anderson Avenue. Send me a check. You owe me something.
it's been a lot of frustrations around Black Lives Matter and how they are using the money that they're getting from all of these different black people that have died.
Who
and all
cares?
these
Because
things
look at
that
the Red
happen.
Cross. Look at the UN.
And they're doing the same
look
thing.
Listen, I saw something on Instagram today where I think Charlemagne, the guy was talking about, he was like, treat black people like a F-23 fighter pilot or
What?
fighter jet. And he was like, because you spend $1.3 trillion on it. And he was like, so send us some of that money. And I'm out here like, yeah, treat me like a military industrial complex and send me some of that money.
Right.
Because it's like, Black Lives Matter. I mean,
It's questionable how much they actually.
everybody knows
Believe
like Black Lives Matter just controlled opposition. It's just like, it's just the system creating some sort of so-called avenue for people to then express their outrage to then just feed back into the system. So that there's no real, like
you said, it's controlled opposition.
controlled opposition.
Protests are legal.
Yeah,
If it was really doing something, it wouldn't be legal.
exactly. You wouldn't even know
Point
about it.
blank.
They wouldn't be promoting it. Hence why they don't promote the Earth Center. Hence why they don't promote Acosta Natural Healing. Hence why they don't promote anything that we're doing, because they know that what we're bringing is coming to destroy
But they still want
everything.
parts on the low.
Exactly. They want parts on the low because people still come to us. But hey, that's neither here nor there. We're not going to put people out there like that. But this is why initiation is important. Initiation is important because what we're bringing to the table is the things that they don't want you to know about. What we have are the things they're not going to promote. Because if you know for real, like the way things actually go, just know that the things that are actually going to help you, they're not going to promote and they're not going to put at the front and center because they don't want you to actually get hip to the game and then to exit the table that they want you to sit at. Initiation is important. Right now, we have a generation open in New Jersey. We serve the tri-state area, so you're more than welcome to come through. We have classes on Saturday, and we have classes on Sunday. Classes start at, correct me if I'm wrong, 11 a.m. on Saturday and 9 a.m. on Sunday. So you're more than welcome to come through. That's 1506 Anderson Avenue, Fort Lee, New Jersey. That's 1506 Anderson Avenue, Fort Lee, New Jersey. But we also have temples in Baltimore. We have temples in serving the DMV area. That's Baltimore, Maryland, Virginia. We also have a temple in Houston. We have our headquarters in Chicago. And then we also have 2 temples in Canada. We have a temple in Montreal. We have a temple in Toronto. And we also have a temple that's going to be coming to the West Coast. So if you're on the West Coast, you're in California, please check us out. Please get involved because we're coming. We're coming there. We're bringing a temple. But all of us, we're initiates from
Don't forget the UK.
Oh, yeah, of course, yes. UK. Sorry. Oh, how could we forget?
Don't forget them.
Yes, the UK. Mm-hmm. We have a temple in London and we have a temple in Coventry. So please check out check out both of those temples in the UK. And then we also have on Acosta Natural Healing. Check us out, anhlife.org. Please shout out to our sponsor, Sauce. We will drop the link in our description and the chat. And also, we have a very exclusive opportunity for anybody that's listening and that is a part of the Gate of Gates Frontier. We have Gate of Gates merch that we are going to be dropping. I can't read that. That's too far. You're trying to drop me something? Do it another way. Gate of Gates merch. You are able to access the first wave of the Gate of Gates merch by going to Kebtah, KEBTAH NJ.org/merch, MERCH. Check it out and order your merch. We're opening it up for the first 3 weeks at a discounted rate. After those first 3 weeks, that is not the price you're going to be able to get merch. So if you want to be the first ones to benefit from the initial rate, please buy your merch now. Again, that's going to be in the link. Please click, please subscribe. Please keep up. Check us out, KEBTAH-NJ.org/MERCH merch. This has been another episode of the Gate of Gates podcast.
But we can't forget to shout out the reason why we're all here today.
Oh, yes. You know, I apologize because normally we start this out by shouting out the forces in the non-material and the forces, you know, really standing behind the work. The ancestors and the deities and the powers of nature of the Dogon temples and everything that's really standing behind us that allows us to be able to do this work. Particularly Demnabala Musa Mora Dinabig, our founder of the Earth Center, and brought this knowledge and brought this work to the West and opened it up to us for us to be able to reclaim what was lost and had been lost for so long. Thank you, Medicata, because, you know, we got so excited on doing the podcast that we even forgot to acknowledge the passageway in which and the channels that opened up for us to even be able to be here to talk about this and to be here talking about this. So we would like to really acknowledge Nebnabala Musa Mora Dinabig and all the ancestors and all the powers of nature and everything that's standing behind these temples that allows us to be able to be here to talk to you guys today. Your ancestors that brought you on this line, our ancestors that brought us all together, and all the powers of nature that allow us to be able to be here and be a part of this spiritual revolution. Because it is a spiritual revolution. And if you didn't know, now you know. And if we didn't say it, we're saying it again. The ancestral army has returned, and we're here and we're back. So get with it and get ready. This has been another episode of the Gate of Gates podcast. Check us out, all platforms, every which area in which you can find us online, and that's where you can find us.
Every Friday, we'll be here.
Every Friday.
I might not
8
be here.
p.m. Yeah,
They'll
no,
be there.
not you. Yeah. But him and I will be here, and with guests. Sometimes it'll just be him and I. But nonetheless, Gate of Gates podcast has been another episode. Shout out to everybody that tuned in, and please check us out, and please subscribe, and please buy some of the merch before we open it up to the to everybody else, and then it won't be at that discounted rate. E02.